You see, they're like, what are you talking about? You had that ready since last Saturday, last Friday, you said you're going to be talking about Black Panther. Well, listen, there's been a buzz this Black History Month. There's been an excitement that's been going on. And the excitement is because in the middle of this month, a movie comes out by the name of Black Panther. That's right. And the opening weekend is already sold out. Everybody's going to go see it. Everybody, especially the black people, are excited about it. And I started to wonder, why are we so excited about this movie? Why is everybody talking about this movie? Well, of course, people who love Marvel and love comic books are going to be seeing this movie, but people who don't even pay attention to those things are going to see this movie. Yep. See, Jesus giving off that good commentary right now. No, it's no problem. So, we come to why this is so. So go to the next one. Number one.
That's right.
Black Panther. He's no sidekick. He's no token black character.
That's right.
You know, in those scary movies or in those high school movies, there's always that one black character that's the best friend to the main character. And he only has a few lines here and there.
That's right.
And when the main character is going to do something stupid, that black character comes out and goes, "Nah, that's not right, son." Or in a horror movie, he goes, "I wouldn't do that, man." No. Or even in superhero movies. Iron Man has War Machine.
That's right.
Colonel Rhodes. He's not the main character. Right. Captain America has Black Falcon.
That's right.
He's not the main character.
That's right.
But here we have Black Panther. He's the main character. He is not following anybody. He is making his own rules. Right. He is the main character.
That's right.
And then we go to the next one. Number two. Not only is he a superhero, but he's wealthy. And not only is he wealthy, he's royalty.
All right.
That's right.
He is at first a prince, and then when his father passes away, he becomes the king of the country.
That's right.
And then comes to number three. He knows who he is.
That's right.
He has an identity.
Yes.
He has a culture.
That's right.
He has a history. He knows where he came from. He knows where he's going. And he knows what he is.
That's right.
Young people, today I tell you, you need to be all three of these things. You need to not be a sidekick. You need to know that you are royalty. And three, you need to know your identity.
Amen.
So today we're going to look to where in the Bible does it say that. And that's where I found us at 1 Peter 2 verse 9. 1 Peter 2 verse 9. And we don't have portable mics anymore? Or do we? Okay, we do. Okay. All right. Now, I brought the portable mic because I want somebody who is young to read 1 Peter 2 verse 9. Who has it? Okay, do it.
But you are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession, that you may declare the praises of him who called you out of darkness into his wonderful light.
Amen. Young people, you are royalty.
Amen.
And when you're a royalty, there's no need to be a sidekick. There's no need for somebody to be telling you what to be doing when you know what you should be doing. And when you're royalty, no one can order you around. There's no such thing as peer pressure to royalty. Royalty influences what's around it.
That's right.
And let's look into the context. Now, this is what I've been teaching anybody who's been studying the Bible, right? Am I right, Sarah? Anybody who's been studying the Bible with me, I've been telling them that when we look at the Bible, we need to look at the context. What's the word I just used, everybody? Context. When I went to AUC, one of my professors, Dean Davis, said, this is the word you need to be thinking about. And once I started paying attention to this, the Bible started to open up, and I started to get entertained and blessed from the Bible better than any television show on TV right now. So now let's look at the context. Look at the verses before 1 Peter 2 verse 9 and the verses after. You look at the first few verses, Peter is talking about the stone that was ignored. And we know when they were building the temple, there was a stone that was weird looking and it was ignored. And then they found out that it was the cornerstone of the temple. And they used that analogy, even Jesus Christ used that analogy to describe himself. He said, the stone that was ignored has now become the head of the corner. And then, as we go into closer look at verse 8. As Peter says, and a stone of stumbling and a rock of offense, even to them which stumble at the word, being, what word? Being disobedient, whereunto they were appointed. Saying that there are people that all were called to be obedient, but they decided to be disobedient. But you are a royal priesthood. You are a chosen generation. And then when we look at verse 10, which in times past were not a people, but are now a people of God, which had not obtained mercy, but now have obtained mercy. Dearly beloved, I beseech you as strangers and pilgrims, abstain from fleshly lusts which war against this soul, having your conversation honest among the Gentiles, that whereas they speak against you as evildoers, they may by your good works, which they shall behold, glorify God in the day of visitation. Now, back to context. Who is Peter speaking to? Look at that. Look at verse 12. Look at the first verse. Having your conversation honest among the Gentiles. So who is Peter speaking to? No.
The non-Gentiles.
The non-Gentiles. Who is the non-Gentiles?
Israelites, the Jews.
The Jews. Because if you're not a Jew, you're a Gentile, right? Just like if you're not a Roman, you're a barbarian, right?
Right.
Okay? So that's what it is. So if Peter is talking to the Jews have an identity. Am I right? The Jews have a history. Am I right? They have the Old Testament. And that's what made me wonder. I'm seeing Peter speaking about this, saying you are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a peculiar people. A peculiar people. And you know what peculiar means? It's strange. People don't understand what it is. And then I start to realize, oh my goodness. The Bible is pointing to something. So now, let's look to Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy being the second book of law. Let's go to Deuteronomy 7, verse 6. 7, verse 6. Deuteronomy 7, verse 6. Everybody there? Everybody got it? Now, who's the author in this book? Moses. And he's the one who led them out of Egypt so that they can reestablish themselves as a nation. And when I started to look closely, and I looked at verse 6. Verse 6, I saw what it says. For thou art a holy people unto the Lord thy God. The Lord thy God hath chosen thee to be a special people unto himself above all people that are upon the face of the earth. Now, doesn't that sound familiar? Doesn't that sound what is written by Peter? Doesn't that sound pretty much what he said? The words may be a little bit different. Instead of peculiar, you have special. But you still have the word chosen. You still have holy. And then I said, let me look at the context. Let me look at verse 4. For they will turn away thy son from following me, that they may serve other gods. So will the anger of the Lord be kindled against you, and destroy thee suddenly. But thus shall ye deal with them. You shall destroy their altars, and break down their images, and cut down their groves, and burn their graven images with fire. Then the verse we just read, so let me look at verse 7. The Lord did not set his love upon you, nor choose you, because you are more in number than any people, for you were the fewest of people. But because the Lord loved you, and because he would keep the oath which he had sworn unto your fathers, hath the Lord brought you out with a mighty hand, and redeemed you out of the house of bondage from the hand of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. So now, I looked at the context. In Peter, he says, you're a holy nation, but he tells them that you need to be an example to the other nations. Not to say you're a holy nation and then you become arrogant, but to say you're a holy nation and to say we are different from you, so the people that are different from you will start to say, man, I could be like that. And then I said, let me look a little deeper into Deuteronomy. Let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 14, verses 1 to 3. 14, verses 1 to 3. Now we're back in Deuteronomy. Who's the author? Moses. And he's speaking to the Israelite people who are just come out of Egypt, who are now becoming a nation. And here is what Moses says. You are the children of the Lord your God. You shall not cut yourselves, nor make any baldness between your eyes for the dead. Because you know who did that? All right. Egyptians and pagans. You came out of Egypt, but you're not of Egypt. And then verse 2, for thou art an holy people unto the Lord thy God, and the Lord hath chosen thee to be a peculiar people, that word's back, people unto himself above all the nations that are upon the earth. So the verse is back. And here we come into all the things they shall not eat. So here we go. Peter says you are a holy nation. You need to be an example to the Gentiles, which is anybody who is not a Jew. And your example should be so good that even when they say you are doing bad, that they only can see good, that they know that when they say you do bad, they know they're lying. When you look at Daniel, they were ready to lie about Daniel. They wanted to lie about Daniel. They tried to find any little thing to give them a half-truth to add to their lie. And when they looked throughout all his life, they saw that there was nothing they could say. That's what Peter's talking about. A holy nation. A peculiar people. And then Moses says the same thing. He says, God called you out. Not because you're greater than any nation, but actually because you are actually smaller than any nation. But because God loved you, I called you out. So by grace, you are a special people. Are you with me, church? Amen. By grace, you're a special people. So it's not something to lord over people, but it's something to praise to people. And then 14 verses 1 to 3, We have the same thing, and now Moses gives some strict laws. He says, you are different. And this is how you're different. You're not to be eating this. And then it started to come to me, what is the context? Because if I can find the context, I can understand what these verses are pointing to. And if I understand what these verses are pointing to, I understand what God is saying. And if I understand what God is saying, that's the point. So, as I went to the next slide, and I asked context, I came up with the answer. And the answer is obedience. Obedience to God. But here's the thing. Young people, when I say obedience, all of you got nervous and you said, oh no, Eric's going to talk about legalism. I don't want to talk about legalism because I'm used to that when I go home. Don't do this. Don't do that. Don't do this. Don't do that. Don't do this. Don't do that. And then you ask, why? And they say, hey, you don't get to ask why. It's my house. And when you have your house, you can make your own rules. So you mumble to yourself and you go to your room and you say, I can't wait to have my own house. And when I get my own house, I'll make my own rules and nobody's going to tell me what to do. Watch me get a job. I'm going to get 2 jobs. I'm going to pay for my bills. I'm going to move out. You're going to see once because guess what? That's how we are sometimes. Haitian parents be like, yeah, you get your own house, then you can make your own rules. But then they get 2 jobs, they get their own house, then we're like, oh, how come you left us? We do that. But let me tell you this. If you understand what God is saying in the Old Testament, like look at the 10 Commandments. In the beginning of it, he says, I establish a covenant among you. And he gives the 10 Commandments. God is not a God of legalism. God is a God of relationship.
Amen.
So when he's asking for obedience, it's not so that he can lord over obedience and rules over you. It's because he says, I want a relationship with you, and if you follow these things, we can be together. That's what God is talking about. You see, God is never, you see, the 10 Commandments, if you pay attention to the context, the 10 Commandments is not legalism. The 10 Commandments is love. The 10 Commandments is relationship. And that's what he's asking for. He says, I loved you. As we saw in Deuteronomy 7. I loved you, so I took you out of Egypt. Did you deserve to be taken out of Egypt? No. And if you understand the context of being taken out of Egypt, oh my goodness, you would have a different understanding. Because listen, God took the Israelites out, and even God himself said, with a mighty hand. Because when these people left Egypt, the whole world noticed. The whole world was like, who are these people? The greatest nation among the world, and all of a sudden they got out without having to fight one battle.
Yeah.
They didn't have to lose anybody. And they got out, and they got out with all their gold. They got out with all their livestock.
Possession, yep.
You know what the equivalent of that is? That's like if Haiti won the revolution and we didn't have to give the 90 million.
It's true. That's true.
Can you imagine if we did that? Wouldn't be hearing about wish we got people from Norway. They'd be saying we wish we got people from Haiti.
It's true. It's true.
That's how much God loved the Israelites. So when he's saying follow the 10 Commandments, he's not saying I need you to do this because I want to be your boss. He's saying I need you to do this so we can hang out.
That's right.
The Sabbath is the time to hang out with God. In fact, let's look into it a little more. Let's go into some other verses. What's the next one say? Oh, okay. This point. By the way, about rules. See, a lot of time, young people, we complain about rules. We say, we hate rules. Rules is not fair. I hate them so much. Why do they get to give us so much rules? It's not fair. You know, I'm going to do a JJ. I don't like rules. See, JJ's laughing because he's doing the face right now. Look at him doing the face. Eric's calling me out. You know? Same thing. Here's the Queen of England. One of the wealthiest landowners on the planet. All the land that is still under the British Empire in Canada, in Australia, New Zealand, of course England, belongs to her. Wealthy. Look at the jewels she's wearing right there. She's wearing a crown. She's wearing this is stuff that, that crown will pay off all our student loans.
Yeah.
So please, FedEx it to us, please. But no, she's wealthy. But guess what? You study it, you look at Google, you see those articles, you know what they say? The Queen follows up to 50 to 100 rules. She has to do this. She has to do that. When she goes to a benefit, she has to sit like this. She has to walk like this. When she goes to a wedding, she needs to be dressed like this. She needs to walk like this. She needs to be in the processional in this order. All of these things she has to follow. And you know why she follows them? Because she says she's different from you. She says she's different from you. She says she's set aside from you. She's royalty. And the way she does things, she has to be more dignified than you would be. The way she walks, she has to walk dignified. She's royalty. She's the Queen of England. When she waves, she can't wave like this because it's undignified. She needs to wave dignified. When she shakes someone's hand, she needs to do it dignified. She needs to give one shake and then hand off. None of this, President Trump, bring it in, shaky, shake, shake. That's undignified. So that's what I'm trying to understand for you young people. See, the Queen of England, does anybody get to tell her what to do? Nobody gets to tell her what to do. She's the Queen of England. She has more money than you will spend in your entire life. But guess what? She follows rules. Why? Because she says, I need to be different from other people. So young people,
Preach on now.
young people, I don't understand why you hate the rules so much when the rules are there to make you different. The rules are there. See, I got all the adults on me. Don't worry, I'll get them. They'll be on, you young people will be on my side later in the sermon. But listen, right now, you got to understand, these rules are there to make you different. Because why do you want to be like the world? The world isn't doing anything special. And guess what? When the people of the world are doing, especially for non-Haitians, the people of the world are doing their things, they get to come home to an identity. They're trying to take our identity. So next one. So comes to Black Panther. He's royalty. We're excited. We want to see that movie. But it made me think about royalty. Let's look at the next one. What's the next one? Oh, look at that. Look at that. Wow. They know their culture. They dress different from us. They act different from us. They have a different accent from us. They're different from us. They have a whole group of them that are different from us. And that's what gets us excited. We see all these characters. There's so many of them. There's not one moon blah blah. But all of these people, they know who they are. They have identity. They understand their culture and they stand up straight because they see where they're going.
Amen.
And that's when I realized that's why people are excited about Black Panther. Because that's what people are so excited about. Because they are saying, because guess what? Let me tell you something about Black Panther. I know I'm going a little into fictional things, but I had this conversation even with my wife. I said, because my wife loves real movies, Thurgood Marshall movie that's coming out, true stories, true biopics. She loves those. But she doesn't like fictional stuff. But I said, there's something different about Black Panther, my wife. Because listen, Listen, the reason people are so excited about it, the reason people are talking about it in our culture is because this is what happened to Wakanda. Wakanda received something special, a special medal that the world needed from them. Did you guys hear what I said? They received something special that the world needed. So guess what? It made the country wealthy. Because the only, you know Captain America's shield? You know the metal it's made out of? It's from their country. You could only get it from their country. And that's what made them so rich. And because they were so rich, there was no European country that could come and take away this country's identity. So for all these years, they were never imperialized by a European country. And that's what black people are excited about. Because black people started saying, wow, imagine what we would be if the white man didn't take our identity. Imagine how we could stand up straight. How we could go into the streets and be wearing a hoodie and go get some Skittles and not worried that we'd lose our life. And then I thought about it. I said, yeah. How good it would be if black people knew their identity. If black people could stand up straight, how different the world would be. How many of us would rise up. How many of us would speak up and not let ourselves be put down. But then I started to think myself a little more, and I got a little more excited. Because then I said, wait a second. If we're Christian, no matter what has happened in our history, no matter what has happened in our culture, God has given us an identity. Amen. And because we have that identity, we should be doing what we said we would do if the black man didn't lose his identity. If we have a culture and we have an identity through Jesus Christ, we should be willing to do what we said we would do. We should be willing to stand up straight. We should be willing to be different. We should be not worried that we have an accent. Because guess what? I'm different. So what? Because the Bible says we are a peculiar people, a strange people, a chosen generation, a royal priesthood. So let me go into a little deeper. What's the next one? Exodus 20 verse 12. You see, God is telling us to be obedient because he wants us to have our identity. He wants us to be different. Now we read this earlier when we did Exodus 1 through 17. Exodus 12, we know that's right after the fourth commandment. Keep the Sabbath holy. What does that one say?
Honor thy father and thy mother.
Honor your father and your mother so that what may happen?
Your days may be prolonged in the land that the Lord your God has given you.
Okay. Because what do we usually say when we say this commandment? We say, obey your parents so you may live long. Do we say that still? Oh, we learned it, right? We learned the proper context. Good. The proper context is your days will be long in the land God gave you. Now, if God is talking to the Israelites, what is he saying? He's saying, I'm giving you a land that is special. I'm giving you a land that is different. And if you keep honoring your father and your mother, if you keep serving your brother and your sister, if you keep honoring each other and honoring God, the land won't be taken from you. The possessions won't be taken from you. And guess what? You're going to have your own land, your own culture, your own people. And guess what? People will start looking at you and saying, wow, I would like some of that. You know what Israel would have been if Israel did not forget who they were? You know what Sister White says? Sister White says they would have become the richest country on the planet. Because God made them not keep slaves. He had all these rules. If you look through Leviticus and Deuteronomy and Numbers and the end of Exodus, if they followed all those rules, not one single king even followed the sabbatical rule. But if they followed those rules, their land would have been the best land to farm on. They would have been the richest country on the planet. They would have been so rich that every country would start to borrow money from them. And when other countries started to borrow money from them, they would start to owe Israel. And then when it's time to pay up, if they didn't have, now they have to serve Israel. But it's not a big deal because according to their laws, after 7 years, you'll be free. And guess what? If you're sticking in Israel for 7 years, it's better to be a slave there than a free man out in the world. That's what would have happened if God was running Israel. And guess what? Let me tell you something else that will blow your mind. If Israel truly became what God asked it to be, God would not be coming a second time. They would have built the New Jerusalem in Israel because they would have been the smartest people. They would have been the best at building things, the best at making things, because guess what? They would have been all technology, electronics, buildings, they would have come from Israel. You want a Bible? It would say made in Israel. You want an iPad? Made in Israel. You want a cell phone? Made in Israel. Everything would have came out of Israel. Until the whole world would be like Israel. So that when Jesus died on the cross for our sins, he would not have to come again. They would have already put him on the throne and said, here is our King of kings, our leader of leaders, our prince of priests, and they would have reigned for eternity. But because Israel forgot, we're in this situation today. Young people, what situation will you be in if you forget that you're royalty? Because if you're royalty, there is no man that can pressure you to do something. You heard me, girls? If you're royalty, there are certain places you shouldn't be going. You hear me, guys? If you're royalty, there's certain things you need to be doing. You see, successful people, they're the most dedicated, most hungry people you'll ever find on this planet. They're the ones that are going to the gym 5 o'clock in the morning, going to work 7 o'clock early, and then leaving by 5, and then they go home and they do it all over again. But yet we sit and complain, and we say, why should we honor our mother and father? Why should we keep the Sabbath? Go to the next one. Go to the next one. Exodus 58 verses 12 to 14. Oh my goodness. You know what God says here? Oh, what did I say? Exodus, sorry. Isaiah. You know what God says here? He says, if you keep your foot off my Sabbath, I will bring you to the high places. How many of us don't follow this? God promises us high places, but when the Sabbath comes, we say, oh man, another Sabbath. Jesus comes, knocks on our door, he's like, hey, it's time to hang out. And we're like, you again. All right, come on in. When do you leave? Oh, when the sun goes down? Oh, I can't wait. You know, that's how we are. I remember that. As a young person, in winter, we're like, oh man, Sabbath comes so early. But oh yes, it leaves early. So now I can go out and play, right? You know, and go out and roll on in all these places. Yay! And then in the summer, you're like, oh man, Sabbath stays so long. But guess what? Friday, we get to do all our stuff until this. You see, the young people are smiling and laughing and nodding their heads with me. You see, that's how we are. But you don't understand that the best places you are to be is with your King. Amen. If you're with your King, you're in the best places. Let me tell you something. Young people, you guys don't understand. You guys don't understand. You're not getting it yet. Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something what else in the Bible. You see, Enoch walked with God. Amen. Man, you're not getting it. You see, the Bible says Enoch walked with God. That's right. You see, Enoch and God were best friends. That's right. They were best friends. So you know what happened? What happens when you're hanging out with your best friend? You forget what's happening. You forget what you're doing. You could be driving with your best friend. You forget where you're going. You could be hanging out with your best friend. You don't even know what time it is. You could be chilling with your best friend. You forgot what you were doing. You could have made a whole lasagna and then eating it. And then you're like, oh, I did all that? I was on autopilot. Because what? I'm hanging out with my best friend. Guess what? Enoch and God were such good best friends that when God was walking with Enoch, God ended up home, put his feet up on the counter, and then he said, oh, Enoch is still here?
Hallelujah.
Oh my goodness, church, you're not getting it. You're not getting it. Because Enoch didn't earn his way into heaven. Enoch didn't deserve his way into heaven. But guess what? He ended up in heaven because he was walking with God. And when he was walking with God, he ended up in heaven. And then by the time he gets there, God is like, oh, it's time for you to go home. And Enoch said, God, I don't know. You got room here, so I think I'm going to take, you got an extra pillow? I think I'm going to stay right here. Amen. And he ended up there. That's how crazy that is. I'm telling you, that's what the Bible says. Just because he hanged out with God. Can you imagine all the places you will go if you hang out with God? Oh my goodness. That's why I have so much excitement. That's what my faith is. I can't believe what we can do if we walk with God. Oh my goodness. Young people. We got some church directors in this church. They're going to preach some powerful sermons. And people are going to come here saying, oh my goodness, who are these young people preaching like that? And they're going to say, it's because they walk with God. And then they're going to come here and they say, look at all these pathfinders. They're studying their Bible and they love PBE. That's right, I said it. Love PBE. Don't complain about it. Don't groan about it. But they love it. They love reading their Bible. And then people are going to start saying, what is up with these pathfinders? Why do they love the Bible? And we're going to say, because they walk with God. Amen. All right, next one. Young people, the possibilities are endless. Because guess what? The ones that have the best plans for you, because you guys are all thinking about what college we're going to, how we're going to pay for it, how much Sally Mae is going to hound us for the rest of our lives, what car we're going to get. We're thinking about all these things. But guess what? You know who has the best plan for you? God. Amen. And if you follow what God has for you, oh my goodness, who's going to stop you? If you have God take care of your bills, is He going to let you have a late payment? God gets His bills on time. If you let God have your grades, He's going to let you get a C? No, God only gets A's. If you let God have control of where you go to college, you think you're going to go to the worst college ever? No way. God only goes to good colleges. But let me tell you this, young people. As it says in the end of that verse, in 1 Peter 2, verse 9, it says, come out of darkness. Come out of darkness. Walk in the light. Walk in the light. Because if you look at Matthew chapter 5, turn there real quickly. Turn to Matthew chapter 5. If you go to Matthew chapter 5, you're going to see that there was a man who started talking about this. And the people didn't understand what was being said. He said, blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. What do you mean meek people inherit the earth? They never fight. They never go into wars. How are they going to get land? Blessed are the poor in spirit. What? Poor in spirit? No. Only rich people are blessed. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst. They shall receive their fill. Jesus was talking about all the characteristics He wants you to have as royalty. He wants you to follow these characteristics. He wants you to be meek, to be loving, to care about one another. I mean, I'm telling you, if you guys love one another and stop getting into little petty squabbles, into little nonsense arguments, into I'm better than you, into I'm greater than you. If you stop worrying about that, and then you start letting God handle your business, how royal you will be. Because even God says, He says at the end of those Beatitudes, He said, blessed are those who are persecuted for my name's sake. You know, everybody's saying, what? Who is blessed who is persecuted? That makes absolutely no sense. If you're persecuted, you are cursed. God's saying, no, if you're persecuted for my name's sake, you're blessed. There's some amazing things that will happen in your life. Listen, Paul and Silas were in jail. They were praising the name of the Lord. Daniel was in a lion's den. He was having a nap. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were in a fiery furnace. They were chilling in AC. Mordecai was told to be hanged on these gallows. The guy who built those gallows was hanged on it.
Amen.
Jesus will prepare a table in the presence of your enemies. Oh my goodness. That's what I love. I say that to all the people. You see, I even said that to my wife the other day. She was saying something, and I said, listen, you don't believe? God will have to make the table better. Because, listen, this is what I understand. This is what I got to do this analogy. Listen, I know Babel wanted to use it first time. It's mine, so I'm taking it. Listen. When you're made fun of at school and you're not paid attention to and you're not even that popular, you know when you become popular? When you go for that doctor's appointment and your mom gets you McDonald's. Then she drops you back at school. You're like, no, I didn't finish the McDonald's. And you're like, no, I have to go back to work. You're trying to munch all your french fries. She's like, no, I gotta go. You gotta go inside. And you're like, oh no, here it goes. And as you enter and sit down at the lunch table, now you are the most popular kid in the entire school. Because first, who comes up to you? Your best friend says, yo, see you went to McDonald's. Yeah, so let me get some of the fries. And you're like, all right, here you go. And then now your second best friend comes up and like, so you give them the fries, but you gotta hook me, and you're like, here you go, here's some fries. And next thing you know, your enemy and frenemies come to your table. And they say, I know we don't really talk, but I see you went to McDonald's. And I was wondering if I could have some. And then you're like, Listen, we're Christian. We say yes in this analogy. So you give the french fries. Next thing you know, you got no french fries. Everybody took your french fries. And in my case, sometimes my brother would come. He's like, Eric, you got fries? And I'm like, go back to your grade. He'd be like, nah, give me some. So, listen. Yeah, I would do the same too. Yeah, that's true. So, listen. That's when you're most popular. When you have something that everybody wants. And then everybody wants a piece. And they can't resist. Even they'll swallow their pride. And even though they're your enemy, will come up to your table and say, can I have it? That's why I love that verse in Psalm 23. Because if God prepares the table so nice that now your enemies are coming up to the table, you know God prepared the table. Yes. Because what else does he say? After he says all those beatitudes, Jesus says, be the light to the world. Be the light. Walk out of darkness. Be different from the people. Walk in the light. A city on a hill cannot be hid. You know what city he was referring to? Jerusalem. Jerusalem's on a hill. Jerusalem shouldn't have been hid. They should have been proclaiming the gospel. But they didn't do it. So now who has to do it? Bethel has to do it. Amen. The young people have to do it. Because as it says in Acts, as he's referring to Hosea, that the young people will have dreams and visions. That's right. And you know what they say? They say a terrible leader is a leader without vision. But young people, God has a vision for you. Young people, God has a plan for you. God has an idea for you. And it's not for you to suffer. It is not for you to do bad, but it's for you to reach greatness. And I believe it so hardly that I cannot contain it. I am so excited about it because I can imagine if we all walk with God, what will happen? The young people will start preaching. And not only just Bebo and Rosie and George, but all of a sudden Jenny will start preaching.
All right, all right.
And Sarah will start preaching. She'll come out of the corner and start talking about how great God is.
All right, all right.
Can you imagine? And then there will no longer be strife amongst us. Can you imagine? Coming to board meeting with a smile on your face, saying we're going to leave here in 2 hours and we're going to do some great work. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine coming to church on Sabbath and not worrying, not being upset, not being distressed, not feeling downtrodden, but coming out saying, praise the Lord, another Sabbath day, and I can't wait to see everybody at Bethel. Can you imagine the world we'd be in? And now, do I have another one? Or was that the last one? Okay, that's the last one. Good. So young people, as it says in 1 Peter 2 verse 9, you are royalty. You are a chosen generation. But don't be like the Jews, because the Jews forgot that. And you know what else? I hate to blow up Bethel's spot, but maybe some of you already forgot too. Because one of the sermons I remember coming to this church was Elder Ranald Durandis. And he preached this sermon. And I remember, he did in Creole, so the young people didn't really understand. But all the people in this church were saying, amen! And everybody said, and I remember everybody walking out of the sanctuary, they shook back Elder Durandis' hand, and they said, I'm a prince. I'm a princess. Everybody was, and I was so excited. I said, wow! Everybody was blessed. Amen. I need to learn Creole. But did we forget? Have we forgotten that we are royalty? Because God is saying we are royalty. We are special. God has a plan for you. And if you just trust in Him, you too can be a superhero. Now, let me ask this to the young people. Who here wants to be special? Who here wants to be different? Who wants to be set aside? Not to be arrogant about it, but to proclaim the soon coming of Jesus. Because if we do, Jesus will come even sooner. If you are willing to do that, I ask that you stand to your feet. And as we stand to our feet right now, let us make a declaration here today that we are princes. We are princes. And we are princesses. We are royalty, a holy nation. Because God is the King of kings. And no kingdom is greater than His. And I can't wait to take off my crown and cast it at His feet. As He says, well done, my faithful servant. Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, You have called us to be different from the world. You have called us to be a hero. You have called us to be a leader. You have called us not to be sidekicks, but to be influencers on society. But, oh Lord, we have forgotten that. We have taken a back seat and let other people run our lives. We have let other desires run us. But, oh Lord, we want You to be in charge. We want You to be in control. So, oh Lord, we ask at this very moment, take charge of our lives. Take the wheel. Run our lives so that we can be proclaiming Your gospel. Be ready for Your coming and be in Your kingdom forever and ever. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.